Think of your daily routines. You wake up with the remnants of sleep still clinging to your mind. It's quickly forgotten when you write in your gratitude journal, scribbling fragments of gratitude in your prayer journal before heading to work out. Then, you quickly shower and dress, rush to get kids ready, and make a mad dash out the door. Most days, there's a commute, a hurried, often tense journey to and from the office. After a long, challenging day at work, the family comes at you with dinner demands. But most of the time, that chore is interrupted with the need to pick up the kids from activities, and the evening fills with a cluttered mix of obligations or mindless television to numb your overburdened brain.
You want to stay up late to delay the fact that you'll soon have to get up and do it all over again. There's this unsettling, nagging feeling, an anxiety that hums in the background of your mind. Staying on top of responsibilities feels like balancing on a tightrope. Even trivial tasks, such as keeping the car well-maintained or tidying the house, weigh heavily in the grand scheme of things. Life rushes by in a blur of meetings, emails, and endless to-do lists. The days spin like a cyclone, growing faster with every passing hour.
Why does time seem to accelerate as the years roll by? Responsibilities press down like an oversized winter coat, heavy and constricting. Sleep becomes fitful, a series of restless tosses and turns, punctuated by racing thoughts. Mornings begin with a sigh, a groggy reach for social media, instead of the prayer or gratitude list you'd once promised yourself you'd start. Let's be honest, most days don't include a workout. Who has the time?
The mornings began with a sigh, and social media instead of anything else. There's no energy for the other stuff. If you could answer the question, how are you? Honestly, the truth is, most people can't remember the last time they truly felt at peace.
It always seems like the first of the month again, and again, and again. If you could answer the question, how are you? Honestly, how would you respond? For many, the truth is unsettling. We can't remember the last time we truly felt happy. The first of the month always seems just around the corner, and with it, another round of bills, responsibilities, and unmet goals.
A sigh escapes. When will I be happy, content? When will I feel accomplished? Am I wasting my life? One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in warm hues, my eyes wandered to a book on the shelf. It wasn't just a book, but a manual of sorts. Most homes have this manual, but the dust clinging to its edges whisper of neglect, of years spent waiting for someone to turn its pages. On this particular evening, it seems to beckon me, an unspoken invitation to explore its contents.
Could this ancient book hold relevance for my modern life? Was it merely a collection of outdated stories, or was there something more? After all, why does this book remain one of the oldest and most purchased books in the world? I was tired. We are tired. I just want to feel good about my life. And maybe, for the first time in a long time, I am willing.
Willing to do what? To take guidance from a force greater than myself? Am I willing? It wasn't an unfamiliar concept. After all, I have a heart for God, don't I? Yet somehow there never seemed to be enough time to nurture that love. I dimmed the lights, sat cross-legged on the floor, and closed my eyes. Maybe now is the time? The room seemed unnaturally still, the hum of the refrigerator suddenly louder than ever. I took a deep breath, then another. At first, my mind rebelled, flitting from one thought to another like a restless butterfly. Did I reply to that email? What about tomorrow's presentation? Did I forget to thaw the chicken? My phone's social media starts vibrating.
Then this thought quickly crossed my mind. Will reading this book actually give me any clarity or help me with my daily life? Is there a solution in here? As I studied the front cover, running my hands over, a small gentle voice beckoned me to be fully present and open it where I felt guided. For the first time in a long while, I felt still. I exhaled. The frantic buzz in my head began to quiet, like a storm retreating into the distance. I became aware of the softness of the rug beneath my legs and the faint scent of lavender lingering from a candle I'd lit earlier.
And in that stillness, the book opened.
The sun rose over the encampment, its rays glinting off the bronze basin that stood outside the tabernacle. Aaron, high priest of Israel, stood before it, the weight of his calling heavy on his shoulders. Aaron dipped his hands into the water, cool and still, and let it flow over his fingers. He bent low, letting the water cleanse his feet, recalling the command given in Exodus 30, 18, 21, "Wash your hands and feet so that you may not die." This was not an act of convenience or mere hygiene. It was a declaration of obedience, a recognition that the God of Israel, who spoke through fire and cloud, demanded more than words. He required a purity of body and spirit. Aaron's heart echoed the words of Leviticus 11:44, "Be holy, for I am holy." As Aaron entered the tabernacle, he felt the gravity of the moment. The cleanliness of his hands and feet mirrored his desire to approach God with reverence. Every ritual, every act of purification was a reminder that God's holiness required not only spiritual devotion but also outward preparation.
I sat there for a while, reflecting on what I had just absorbed. I'm wondering if the story of Aaron is the roots of the belief that the body is a temple.
The formula for a meaningful life is hidden within this story. Intentional routines, mindfulness, and reverence in every aspect of life, even in the seemingly insignificant details, all stem from this sacred text. If God says to do something a particular way and we think we can do it differently, perhaps we should think again. What seems trivial to us is significant to God.
We are entrusted with the sacred responsibility of caring for the temple, our bodies and lives, given to us by the Most High. It is a vessel, not just for our existence, but for His divine purpose. Most days, I seem to be consumed with whether I'm happy or not. Maybe I should be more concerned with, am I living God's divine purpose? After all, what really is happiness? It's a fleeting emotion amongst other emotions.
All the small, seemingly inconsequential acts reflect a larger question. Am I to blame for the way I feel today? My car broke down last week and had to go to the shop. Is that my fault? Or is it my reaction to the situation that I control? When I catch a cold, is it my fault too? Is it within my control on how I experience things?
Introspection. It's fascinating how delving into Bible stories to deepen my understanding also deepens my understanding of myself. It prompts me to ask the hard questions.
Aaron's example teaches us that cleanliness and mindfulness were not optional, spiritually or physically, as he tended to the sacred items in the tabernacle. His daily routines were not mere tasks, but acts of devotion and stewardship. This mirrors our own daily lives, waking up, praying, exercising, preparing for work, caring for our families, and handling responsibilities like maintaining our homes, vehicles, and health. These are not just chores. They are opportunities to honor the blessings Yahweh has given us. Our relationships, health, work, and possessions are all sacred gifts deserving respect and attention to detail.
Consider this. We set a goal to be healthy, yet we absent-mindedly grab a jelly donut, undermining our intentions. We eat without mindfulness, sabotaging our long-term goals of staying healthy and agile in old age. Such habits weaken our immune system and rob us of vitality. We snooze the alarm clock, stay up too late streaming Netflix, or push tasks off to another day. Routines are the formula for a productive life. They help us accomplish and achieve our goals. Neglecting them often leads to unnecessary consequences.
We failed to maintain our vehicle, and now it's out of commission. Something as simple as changing the oil on time, checking tire pressure, or monitoring coolant levels could have prevented it. Sometimes, we even neglect the property we live in because it's not ours, but a rental, overlooking maintenance and cleanliness because someone else should handle it. Such attitudes lack reverence for the things we use and possess. Do the consequences of living this way bounce back on us?
How do I achieve permanent change? How do I overcome these ingrained habits?
The question we must ask ourselves is this: am I ready to serve God today? Do I live with the fear of God?
I have a heart for God, but what does it truly mean to live with the fear of God? Having a love for God is not the same. Love is kind. Love is forgiving. Love is patient. Loving God is not the same as fearing God.
Reflect on Aaron, who approached his responsibilities not as burdens but as offerings to God. God said, "Do this or you will die." Stewardship is more than action. It's a mindset. It's striving to honor Him not just in grand gestures, but in the quiet daily acts of devotion that shape our routines and draw us closer to His presence. Aaron's foundation was built on discipline and a genuine fear of God. He lived with the knowledge that disobedience had immediate consequences. We, however, often live without such urgency because the consequences of our choices seem far off. We think we can get away with neglecting what matters, as though God isn't paying attention.
Then why do I feel like this? Even if I thought I can get away with something, shouldn't I always approach everything I do with, "What if God found out?" How hurt would God be if I do it? Would I perhaps lose all? Would this take away my peace? Would I feel I could talk my way out of it?
Leviticus 10, 1-2 recounts. Aaron's sons, Nadab and Abihu, took their censers, put fire in them, and added incense, and they offered unauthorized fire before Yahweh, contrary to His command. So fire came out from the presence of the Lord and consumed them, and they died before the Lord.
This means Aaron's own sons died because of disobedience.
Aaron's sons died because of their disobedience. They might have rationalized their actions, thinking the details didn't matter, and cut corners. But when you alter the formula and disregard God's instructions, you alter the outcome. Were they proud, careless, or simply inattentive? Perhaps they thought they knew of a better or easier way. Regardless, their irreverence had immediate and devastating consequences.
Fulfill God's command, or if you do away with it, there may be devastating consequences.
The Exodus from Egypt. The Israelites left Egypt and crossed the Red Sea, an event narrated in Exodus 12:14. Shortly after, they arrived at Mount Sinai, where they received the 10 Commandments and the laws of the covenant, Exodus 19:20.
Instructions for the tabernacle. While at Mount Sinai, God gave detailed instructions for building the tabernacle and for consecrating the priests, including Aaron and his sons, Exodus 25-31.
Exodus 30:18-21. God provides instructions about the bronze basin and the importance of washing to prevent death during priestly duties.
Leviticus 8-9. The tabernacle is completed, and Aaron and his sons are consecrated as priests. This marks the beginning of worship in the tabernacle.
Leviticus 10:1-2. Nadab and Abihu offer unauthorized fire during the early days of their priestly service, resulting in their deaths. This was still during the Israelites' stay at Mount Sinai, before the Israelites began their journey toward the Promised Land. Nadab and Abihu died within the first year or two after the Exodus, during the Israelites' encampment at Mount Sinai.
The journey to the Promised Land. After leaving Mount Sinai, the Israelites spent 40 years wandering in the desert, a journey that should have been much shorter. Why did God extend this period? Was it necessary for the disobedient and unfaithful generation to pass away first? The Promised Land was only entered after Moses' death under the leadership of Joshua, Joshua 1-1-6.
What did Nadab and Abihu do? They were warned there would be death. Aaron's children might have rationalized to themselves what the big deal is, and they cut corners. When you alter the formula and don't do what Yahweh prescribes, you alter the outcome. Were the sons of the high priest puffed up with pride and not paying attention to instructions? Were they being spoiled, lazy, or sloppy? All excusable offenses to most people, but they should have known there would be immediate consequences.
Did God say he would overlook it, or did God say you will die? God had given specific instructions. Their actions were seen as irreverent and showed a lack of respect for God's holiness.
God's commands are not suggestions. There are laws to follow, and we have witnessed the consequences of ignoring them. Yet, we continue to test the boundaries as if we have a get-out-of-jail-free card.
Does this sound like an unattainable plan? Is God asking too much of us? Is that even possible? If so, why would God have asked it of us? Did God's instructions just apply to them because the ark was amongst them?
Isn't it true that our bodies are now temples of God? Isn't God still with us? Perhaps we won't physically die from our disobedience today, but spiritually, we do. Life feels meaningless because partial obedience to God doesn't work. No one else can do this for us. We must do it ourselves.
Mindfulness, routine, and reverence can be achieved by cultivating a genuine fear of the Lord. When asked what this means, responses will vary wildly. Some equate being a God-fearing man to the fear of consequences from God, a reverence that keeps us aligned with God's will. Genuine fear of God is not just about punishment. It's about understanding the weight of disobedience and the loss of connection it brings. Like a kid who did wrong, the anxiety, upset, and panic of waiting on Father to get home to be punished is usually enough to prevent the wrong actions in the first place. Like a criminal who was caught, waiting on the judge to give him a sentence. That is fear. Had they stopped, been mindful, and thought it through ahead of time, actions would have been different if they had a real fear of the consequences.
Here's the formula: simple but transformative practices. Fear God. Genuine fear fosters mindfulness, routines, and reverence. It keeps us aligned with His instructions.
Introspection of our thoughts and actions, along with exploration of the Word. Reflect on your actions and study the Word of God. Develop a personal relationship with Yahweh by starting at the beginning of the Bible. Don't take others' word for it. Read and study. Develop a personal relationship. Dedicate time to His Word, not out of obligation, but as an act of worship. If you've got time for social media or TV, you have time for this. It's all in what you prioritize.
Mindfulness in action. Live in the present moment with reverence. Establish routines that guide your thoughts and behaviors, especially when motivation wanes. God has specific instructions and commandments that will help you establish routines and be like a lamp to your feet to guide your steps.
When we approach life with the fear of the Lord, everything changes. By honoring His instructions in the small, daily acts of stewardship, we align ourselves with His divine plan and discover the contentment we've been seeking all along. We find peace, order, and purpose.
As the journey of life continues, discovering that peace wasn't something that needed to be chased. It is something that can be found in the living Word.